Hello everybody, how are you doing today? It is Sunday morning. Now I'm not going to be out here very long today. I've only got about 2 hours. But what I really want to do is kind of clean up and set up, okay? I did not get a lot of time in the shop this past week because I went back to work after being off a couple of weeks, and of course it was a very, very busy week. So I just did not have time, and I was so wore out after work. But I think this coming week, I'm going to try to get out here in the shop a couple of days and work on my record crates. I have changed the plan a little bit. So actually being away from this was good because I kept thinking about it. Let me show you what my plan is now. You saw where I was prototyping. I decided I don't want this much of a stand. I'm going to go ahead and build a third crate, and then I'm going to build these stands, but they're going to be smaller. There'll be two smaller stands to go between them and stack them. I think it'll be more stable. I think it'll look better, and it will definitely give me more room to store albums because even though I really only need about 2.5 crates right now, I expect my collection of albums to grow, and when that happens, I'm going to need another crate. So I like the idea. So prototyping this was good because it let me see what it looked like. I wasn't super happy with it, and I just kind of let it roll around in the back of my mind. And now I think I know what I want. So I actually went out the other day and I bought 4 more boards. And I've got them sitting here. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. These are for another project. These 4 boards cost me $18.95 a piece. Now over the summer, back in April, I think it was, I was building some Adirondack chairs. Those same boards, those are 5/4 by 6 by 8 foot. That's what they were. I was thinking they were 10 for a second, but they're by 8 foot. Were $9.95 in April. Here it is January. They are $18.95 a board. That is ridiculous. Wood has almost doubled. But here's the concern with the boards. They are damp. They have obviously been stored outside for a while. They're damp. So, I worry about warpage a little bit. But what I worry more about is will they take the stain? So I've got an idea. A couple of years ago, I built a deck. And when I built that deck, I brought the wood in and I laid it out, each piece side by side, on the concrete floor of my garage. And the next day I went out, lifted the boards up, and the floor was soaking wet. So I moved them I flipped them over, moved them to the other side of the garage, and I did that for a couple of days. And after a couple of days, there was no more moisture under the boards, and they appeared to be quite a bit drier than they were. I think the concrete will wick that water out of them. It just absorbs that water. So we're going to take those 4 boards, and we're going to get them laid down on the concrete in the garage and let them start drying. That way, hopefully in a few days when I am out here and ready to start working, I can go straight to cutting and not have to worry. And the stain is the big thing. I don't want it to be too wet because then the stain is not going to absorb and it's just going to all wipe off and they're just not going to look right. Something I wanted to mention to you guys. Eric Goodwin has a podcast called The Last Cut. And he interviewed me this past week. He and I had a little Zoom meeting. We did a quick interview. And I'll be on that podcast. I'm not sure how far behind he is. I think it's this coming week. I think he does them at the beginning of the week, and then toward the end of the week he posts them. But either this week or next week, the audio should be up for the podcast. So I'm excited about that. On the podcast that I do with Rebecca DeGroot and Mike DeLalter, we actually did a Zoom podcast. Michael could not join us, so Rebecca and I did a Zoom podcast last Sunday and recorded it. And Rebecca has that podcast edited, and she has it uploaded to, we created a YouTube channel called You Made That with an exclamation point. So if you go out to YouTube and you type in You Made That, you can pull up the video of the podcast. Now, if you listen to the podcast on an audio player, the audio is going to be identical. You're just going to see us sitting in front of the camera. So I don't think it's very exciting, to watch, but I think it's a lot of fun to do because we had maybe 28 people at the high point who joined us, and in the chat they could put questions and we were able to answer some questions. So from that perspective, I think it's really cool to do a live Zoom like that, and we definitely plan on doing some more because we had a great time with it. So check that out. You Made That with an exclamation point. Search on YouTube, it'll pop up, and check that out. Let us know what you think about it. Let us know what you think about that format. Do you prefer watching it as opposed to listening to it? I'd like to hear your input because, you know, it is important in how we proceed in the future with the podcast. Now, I'm going to go ahead right now and get the boards laid out, and then I got to work on something else. And let me show you what I found the other day, and this is always a fun one. It's not a big deal, but I'm going to flip around. Take a look at this. This right here, I don't know how well you can see it, but that is the line of sawdust and chips from all of the cutting and working with the cooler boxes. I have filled up my bin. Luckily, the trash came the other day, so I've got a can that's empty. We're going to get this out of here today and get it emptied. And I love it. I love that I ran this pipe because basically this thing's on wheels. Actually, there's a plastic bag in there, so that's even better. But I'll just pop that cap off of there with release the ring, pop the cap off. I'll carry the bag in, and it's a real thick bag, so I will actually dump it. I don't want to throw my bag away, so I'll just put it back in, but I'll just dump it in the trash can. We'll go out in the driveway and do that so we don't dust the cars real bad. All right, I got to get to work on these couple of things. I'll come back and keep you posted on anything else that goes on in the shop today. Turned out this wasn't near as bad as I thought. I mean, this was all stuck up in the tube, and it sort of fell down whenever I jostled it loose. I think what happened is it's just very light and fluffy, so there's a lot of these little sticks like this that have been shaved off of boards. I think a couple of them kind of caught in the ribs and just sort of built up a little bit. So thank goodness it wasn't as bad as I thought, but we're still gonna go ahead and get this emptied. And over here, I've got these boards laid down. You can see the concrete is dry. You can tell by looking at the boards, you know, that they actually look damp, but nothing yet. They've only been down for about 10 minutes or so. I'll keep an eye on those, and at some point, hopefully I'll remember to show you guys, and you'll see the concrete floor will be wet. Now, they're laying here beside my wife's car. This is the cleanest spot I had for them, and I've already talked to her about it. It's okay to step on them. It's okay to walk on them. They're deck boards. It's not going to hurt them, but I just had to have a place to lay them down. So let me finish up what I'm doing on this waste can, and we'll see what else happens today. I have the top of my table saw cleaned off, and I went ahead and brought my sled over. And the idea is I don't really have time to work today, and with the wood being wet, I don't want to work, but I want to get everything set up, dialed in, and ready to go, so when I can come out to the shop, I can maximize my time, because I know the lengths of all of my boards. So all I've got to do is set the stop block, and boom, start running through the blade, and I can make these crates really quickly. Now I only need to make one more. But what I've done is, notice how far that is off the end. This piece moves back and forth, and when you're adjusting, it's always moving. So you need to always dial in your tape measure here before you make your first cut. I don't know how well you can see it, but right there, whoops, there we go, at 15.5, you can kind of see the tape splits. So you can slide this, left, right, when you're doing the smaller stuff. But this entire tape measure, and there's a third split down here, see? And what I did is I went ahead and I set this up. I grabbed a scrap piece of wood. I set it to 16 inches. I dialed it in, and when I measured this chunk of wood, this scrap, it is exactly 16 inches in length. So I always start off, anytime I lay it on the saw, I do a test cut. And that's why I keep these boxes of scraps around. They're great for burning in the fire pit. They're great for shimming, and they're great for making sure your tool is accurate. So that tool is dialed in, ready to go, and I can start cutting anytime, and because it's not going to move until I'm ready to cut. So I'm excited about that. Over here, I went ahead, when you saw this on top of my table saw, the crate was on the bottom, but I didn't want to get it all scuffed up on the floor of my shop. So I went ahead and put the crate on top. This is how it's going to kind of look when it sits on top of the stand, with one exception. I don't have a back on here, so it's slid back about an inch, but that'll be all the way forward. Now imagine that stand being only about that high, and there'll be one on the bottom crate, a crate in the middle, one on the middle crate, and then the top crate. That is the way we're going to go with this, and that's what I bought the wood for, and that's what we're going to start working on once that wood is dry enough to not worry. Once I can control the warpage. It's going to warp no matter what, but once I know, where the warps are, I can cut those pieces out, and I can make my stand, and then I know that it'll take the stain quite nicely. This may seem silly, to be out here doing this kind of stuff, but it's just going to make it quicker, because I know during the week I'm not going to have a lot of time. And probably, later in the week, at least Wednesday or so, I'll feel comfortable that that wood has had a chance to really wick off some of that moisture. The air is dry, the concrete's dry. And if I feel like it's dry enough to the touch, because I don't have a moisture meter, I'll come out here and start doing my cutting. And like I said, this is simple. Cut everything to length. I know my lengths. I know how many I need. And then I bring over my my fence, and I know what my widths are. I set them up. I cut them all to width. Once, I mean, this is going to be so quick. I've already got the router set up. All I got to do is move the block of bits off of it. Not a big deal. So the sanding table is set up. It's ready to go. I am ready to make these. I'm ready to make another crate as soon as I get out here and have a chance to do it. Now, to make the stackers between the crates, I still got a little bit of work to do. I pretty well have the idea. It's all about measurements now, making sure they're the right height, you know, so that it's comfortable for me. And I'll dial that in. I'm not worried about that. With a second crate, it'll be so much easier to dial in, and we'll have that. We'll have that done pretty soon, and I'm excited about having that. My wife's excited about having it because it really cleans the room up upstairs. I think what I'm going to work on now is I've been getting a lot of requests to turn a pin, and I really hadn't been feeling like turning a pin, but I think I'm going to go ahead and clean the lathe table off, get it ready to turn, everything just like I did over here, so that I can walk out and turn. And I've got a few pins over there that I was working on prior to everything going upside down for me. I think I'm going to dig through those, and I'm going to pick one, and I'm hoping one day this week maybe to have some time to get out here, turn a pin, and then later in the week or whatever, maybe to try to get you guys a video together. I don't know how good it'll be. I don't know how much. I don't really have any tips right now. I hadn't been turning, so I hadn't learned anything new. But I do want to get back into the swing of getting you guys some videos, and hopefully we can do that real soon. I have got my lathe table cleaned up. It looks great. I've gone ahead and chucked up a blank. Now, this is a piece of ambrosia maple, and I'll tell you why I chose it in a minute, but it's kind of cool. It's got some wormholes in it, and one of them, there it is right there. You can see all the way through, so chances are that'll probably turn away. Once I turn it down, I'll take a look at the holes and see what they look like. If they're still there, we'll fill them. Some of them may go to the core. Some of them look like they just passed through. The reason why I chose the ambrosia maple is because I've got this new tool from Tommy Stridham and Eddie Stipe. It is a Carter & Sons skew. Lost it for a second. I'm super excited about it. The first time that I used it was the other day, and I turned a blank for a buddy of mine, that the violin blank you might remember. And I had a little trouble with the skew, not because there's anything wrong with the skew, but because my technique's not there yet. I think I might have showed this on the video. Let me flip around and show you what the issue is. Issue was the wrong word. There's not an issue at all with this thing. It is absolutely incredible. But here's the skew I normally use. This is my Robert Sorby. I love this skew. It's a great skew. And of course it's not going to look right because I've got this lowered because I'm trying to adjust it for that tool. But normally I would have this raised up maybe about 1/4 inch, because see, when I'm angled, I am below the center point, which is where I don't want to cut. See, that's catch. Oops, sorry, I keep getting you out of frame. That's catch area right there. But anyway, I bring this up, I anchor the tool, I start riding the bevel, and then I turn into the cut to cut. And when I do that, this tool is skinny, so like I said, I raise this tool rest of about 1/4 inch, and I turn right into the cut. With this tool, look at the difference in meat. Look at the thickness of that tool. And this is where the issue was, and it was on my end. But I laid the tool, I anchored it on the tool rest, I rode the bevel, I turned it into the cut, and because I had this tool rest set for that tool, I was way above the turning, so I was cutting on the toe of the skew, which you can do, but it's not comfortable. And I ended up having a lot more tool marks to deal with. It was a little bit rougher, but I think I understand the issue now. So I've lowered my tool rest so that whenever I anchor and I raise up to cut, see, I'm right there. It's gonna be awesome. I think this is gonna work a lot better. It's just a matter of there's so much meat there. See that meat, that when you roll, it's gonna lift you up a whole lot higher. I hope I explained that right, but that was my experience, and I hope this adjustment's going to be just the ticket to make it do what I want to do, because I love the tool. The neat thing about it is it probably weighs 4 times what the Robert Sorby weighs with the wood handle. So you get a different kind of feedback from the tool when you're using it, and because it's heavier, there should be less vibration It's also longer, which I can plant in my hip a lot better. And less vibration means less tool marks, which means a smoother cut, which means, better finish, easier finish. So I'm super excited about using it, man. That's just a great tool. But I chose the wood blank. I guess I took a tangent here. I chose the wood blank because wood is much easier to cut than acrylic. And I'd like to start off and turn, a couple of wooden blanks with it just to dial in my personal technique for using the tool, and then once I've got that, then I'll go back to acrylic and just anything else I have in the shop. It's just a matter of getting the feel for the tool. And I've only done one blank on it, so I definitely don't have that yet. So I'm still dialing in, and wood's a whole lot easier to deal with. It's a whole lot more forgiving as well. So, but we're going to work on that. So that's something. If nothing else, I'm going to turn that sometime this week just to dial in my capabilities. And I will record it, which means I need to get a camera set up, a tripod, because I got everything set up over there except the dust collector. And the reason I don't have the dust collector set up is because I share it with the sanding table, and it's piped into the table because this is kind of a priority this week. I want to work on this if at all possible. But worst case, I just move the hose and we're live. So let me get the camera set up. Yeah, I mean, I like the fact that things are going to be ready because I should be able to walk out and start working. I'll keep you posted on what else happens. Well, I'm back to dragging a ladder into the shop to mount this camera, which I hate. The other day, whenever I was using my metal lathe, I was able to clamp a tripod to the ceiling above the lathe, and then I could just adjust the top of the tripod here to point straight down at the lathe, and that worked out really, really well. No vibration, no nothing. It was up out of the way. I hate this ladder method. It's worked well, but look how much room it takes up. And you're constantly trying to get around it, and it's just, I got to come up with a better method. I attempted to clamp it above this light, but see, this is a very wide light. Sorry about that darkening the camera up. And I could not find a good way to mount it. I had to spread the legs so far apart in order to get around the width of this light that it brought the camera too far down, too close to the turning, which means I'm not going to be able to get you guys a great angle. Normally I try to keep everything in frame. Man, I got to come up with a better idea for this. I'm going to start with the word simple, okay? Simple. If any of you guys know of a camera mount that can be built, a simple camera mount. I don't want some elaborate, complicated thing. Sometimes I get plans and they're like super complicated, like super expensive. I don't want anything like that. I don't have time to deal with it, and I'm not going to do it. I'm just wasting my time. So, but if you got an idea for a very simple, easy to make, something I can use to mount this camera above this lathe, I would like to see that. I would like to have it off the floor. So I can mount up top. I just can't mount directly above. I'll have to mount with an offset of some kind. But the other thing is, it doesn't need to be super wide or anything because I don't want to block the light. I need all that light to be able to see what I'm turning because it is dark back in that corner, without having the lighting. So if you have a simple plan or know of a simple plan or know of a simple video that you've seen for a tripod stand, something that I can mount to that ceiling and have hang down that won't block my light, let me know. I'm going to go out and do some looking myself and see what I can come up with because I got to have a better way. This ladder just drives me crazy because now, just look at the floor space that takes. I mean, I had this old compressor back in there. I had this back in there. My trash can was back in there. It was all out of the way. I had plenty of room here to move around. Now with the ladder, I got to scoot all this stuff out. I lose all this room to maneuver, and I just start feeling cramped and just really, in the shop. And there you have a complete mount. I've got the tripod run through the ladder rungs. I've got it clamped on the back rung. There's a block of wood to sort of brace it in the front, keep it level. It hangs out over the lathe. You can see what an atrocity this is. And then basically this is my clamp for my camera on here or my phone here. And I'll probably be shooting with the phone. Yeah, you can see it. This is just not the best case scenario. So I am really interested in finding something that's going to provide just a little better option for us. Alrighty guys, just a quick trip to the shop today. That's going to pretty well be about it for me. I've got 2 projects set up and ready to go. So when I get a few minutes, I can come out and I can start working right away. So even if it's an hour or 2 hours, when I get to the shop, I at least am set up to get started. One thing I am going to do is go in the house, and I've got a few minutes left. I'm going to go over my notes for cutting out the crates and I'm going to go ahead and make just a cut list. What it is right now, it's just a scribble drawing with notes all over it. So I kind of have to look at things. I'm going to go ahead and make the cut list so I know cut this many at this length, this many at this length, so that way I can knock them out a lot quicker. And I think this would be great. I'm excited about getting out to the shop and doing something. It's just a matter of finding a little bit of time. So hopefully this week is not as chaotic. You know, first week back, everybody's back for the first week. Everybody's ready to get rolling, and they're excited about being back to work, and they got their projects, and it really just sort of built up. There was a lot a lot of things requested of me, and I tried to deliver. So hopefully this week won't be as hectic. It'll be busy, that's for sure, but hopefully not as chaotic, and we'll get a chance to get out here in the shop and maybe enjoy a little time in the evening. I'll talk to you again real soon. Have a great evening. Bye-bye.